Namaste. In some phases of our spiritual or Kundalini awakening, we listen to certain voices inside our head. Sometimes we tell ourselves that we need to end our life, or you'll have voices telling you to commit suicide. So, what do these voices mean? Especially, these voices are heard in a particular phase of our spiritual awakening process. And this stage is generally marked by deep depression or kind of anxiety or fear. During these phases, we listen to these voices more. So, what do these voices mean, and what are these voices trying to tell us? Is what about I'll talk about today. There are times in the spiritual awakening process or the Kundalini awakening process where we feel alone, we feel depressed, we feel deprived, and this could lead to a lot of suicidal thoughts. Some even attempt to uh, take certain steps towards ending their life. Why do we feel it? What are these voices trying to tell us? Firstly, these voices are not some entities. Generally, what people think is that these are certain entities who are sitting inside our head or who are trying to interfere with our thought processes, and that they're planting the ideas that I need to die or I should commit suicide. So, first thing, these are not entities. These are the voices coming from your unconscious self. Why do these voices come? The body has its own intelligence. It knows more than what you can comprehend. Generally, when somebody is undergoing a spiritual awakening and they're not aware of it at the conscious level, but at a certain level, at an unconscious level, the body is experiencing this spiritual awakening happening within it. I've made a video on the different stages of the spiritual awakening process. I'll post a link to that video in the description box below. You will understand the stages in a spiritual or Kundalini awakening if you see that video. So there are certain stages in the spiritual or Kundalini awakening process where these voices are heard more. Generally, this stage or these voices are heard most before the ego within us is dissolving away a little bit more. There are stages in our spiritual or Kundalini awakening process. Generally, when we have an influx of spirit, we could feel it as pranic descension onto our body, like the descent of grace, or we can experience it in the form of pranic movements within our body, certain kriyas happening, chakras rotating. All these things are moving you away from the fixed structures that the ego creates in our body to a more open system. When the spirit is descending onto us or working within our system to clear away the fixed egoic structures in our body, we come to a stage where we have to deal with a lot of baggage that we carry from many lifetimes, which is our karmic impressions, our tendencies, our subconscious stuff, materials, our inadequacies, our fears, our pain, trauma, our desires. A lot of that stuff is there, that junk is there in our uh, astral body. So we need to deal with all that. When we are dealing with this stuff, we are entering into an area or a zone which is a dark area where you feel despair, you feel distressed. You are now working through all that egoic baggage that is there. You have to deal with your inner stuff, you have to face it, you have to resolve it. When you are just about to get into this phase, you will hear these voices even more in your head, especially for somebody who's just new on the spiritual path, or they're not aware that they're undergoing a spiritual awakening process, because initially this process happens at a very unconscious level. The person may not be aware at a conscious level about what is happening within his own body. During this phase, they will hear a lot of voices in their head telling them to commit suicide, to die. Questions like, what does this life mean? There is no meaning in it. You need not struggle any further. It is easier to end your life. Or you might tell yourself that I need to finish my life's journey by putting a full stop today itself, or let me commit suicide, let me jump off a cliff, let me drown in the water. It could be many, many different ideas that keep floating in the head, and all these ideas are only telling you to put a full stop to your life because life has become a burden and you don't want to carry this any forward. Even if life is not a burden, there could be certain external situations that you are attracting, or your own inner lack of sense of security. Some people do not have a proper upbringing, so that sense of safety or inner security is not properly laid in their childhood. This can even magnify this feeling that they need to end their life. They don't see any value in life, or they don't see any value that they're adding to others' lives. So, for many reasons, the person uh, will be drawn towards these ideas in a particular stage of the spiritual awakening process. Some take these ideas very seriously, they might even attempt to do something to themselves. But once we cross this stage, we move into a stage where we are dealing with lot of our own inner baggage. We cry, we maybe fight with ourselves, we are volatile in nature in the sense that we are very angry, we feel despair, we feel depressed. We move through that zone. And once we have worked through that zone, this is called as the dark night of the soul in the Christian tradition. So once you work through this dark period, you again emerge into a much lighter phase where all that emptiness which is created inside because you have cleansed or cleared away a lot of karmic baggage, that get replaced by the light of the spirit. You feel lighter, you feel brighter, you feel better. At this stage, you will not have any of these suicidal thoughts, or the voices in your head will not be there. So what has happened here is you have moved from a lower vibration to the next level of higher vibration. Again, after some time in your life, something might trigger a second stage of spiritual evolution in your life. That is, you will go through all these stages where again there'll be an influx of spirit. That influx of spirit will cause a lot of inner turmoil. You will again work through your karmic baggage at that level, and then you will come out as something much lighter and brighter and more wiser through this process. So, this spiritual evolution or the Kundalini awakening, these stages of spiritual awakening can happen from one to many times. It depends on how much of spirit is descending on you, or how much of prana is working inside your body, and how speedy your evolution is happening. At the initial stages, that is when you're having these experiences for the first time in your spiritual evolution process, the intensity of these voices is much stronger. They can continue in your head for months or years together, telling you to end your life. There could be a lot of frightening thoughts coming into your mind. But once you have moved through those stages where you have evolved to the next higher vibration, again, there in the next high vibrational level, you will again get these thoughts in your head, but they will not be as intense as you experienced them the first time. So, the more you go through these spiritual awakening cycles, which are taking you to the next vibrational level, the more you progress on this path, the less intense these inner voices become. When you reach a very high vibrational state, these voices or your own voice might come like a sentence that I want to end life. What is the point of life? What is the point of living? This could just be a fleeting thought at this stage. And at this level, you have already understood how to work through these thoughts. You have understood why these thoughts come in your head. So it has no effect on you. So please understand that these thoughts are nothing more than a part and parcel of your spiritual evolution progression, and you will experience them, but the intensity will come down as you are progressing or working more through your karmic baggage. These ideas can even pop up in your dream states where you will see yourself dying. You might even have dreams where you are experiencing a rebirth. The reason why we experience this is when we are about to have a spiritual awakening process in our body. At some level, your body is able to comprehend that you will undergo this spiritual awakening within you. Our body has its own intelligence. It operates at various levels: the unconscious level, the subconscious level, and the conscious level. But we as humans are not aware of our subconscious or unconscious aspects. The subconscious aspects may pop up in our dreams, but generally these ideas do not filter till our conscious state where we are awake. So, most of the activity that is happening with our body at an energetic level, we are not aware of it at a conscious level, but your body is aware of it. So, your body is trying to tell you that at an unconscious level, the process is unfolding in your body. And the way you hear this is the voices that are coming in your head, the voices that are telling you that you will die, or your own thoughts that you want to end your life. In a way, you are unconsciously permitting the process to work through your body when you are entertaining these thoughts. Of course, these thoughts can uh, cause a lot of fear initially when you're not aware of what is happening within your body. Do not fear these thoughts. They are now negative entities that are putting these thoughts. Even if you see certain types of entities inside your head, understand it's just the different unconscious aspects within you that are talking to you, which are telling you about this process. Initially, when a person is on the spiritual path, they do not have the inner wisdom or the intelligence required to interpret the messages that the body or mind is giving to the person. It takes certain amount of experience, certain amount of insight and intuition to understand our body's messages. Our body and mind is more aware of what is happening within us than what we are aware at a conscious, wakeful state. Each time the spirit is descending onto the person, the prana is opening more areas within the body goes into a state of shock. When I say shock, I mean the ego structure that is there within us. That experiences a shock because the body is working as per the personality of the person. This personality has learned to behave, think, emote itself in a particular way over many lifetimes. So these structures, which are personality structures or the egoic structures that we have, they have a very strong influence on our body and mind. These are fixed. These things get fixed as our personality develops very well. Now, the influx of the spirit is trying to destroy these egoic structures and fill these areas with light. So, when these structures are getting destroyed within our system, it is like death to the body. The body is interpreting it as death. The body or the mind is not able to differentiate between the physical death of a person and the death of his inner fixed structures, that is, the egoic structures within that person. So, the subconscious or the unconscious mind, it interprets this event that is happening within the body, where the fixed egoic structures are getting destroyed, as death. And you will hear the same voices within your head telling you to die, or which are sort of warning you of impending death. These voices might put you into a state of fear, or you might even believe these voices, thinking that you will die very soon. Firstly, these voices or these messages are coming from within your own body, or maybe within your own system where an higher aspect of you is watching over you. Some call this the higher self or your higher intuition or higher discretion at an unconscious level is trying to send you that message. There is no entity here that is trying to trouble you or put you into danger. Secondly, this death means the death of the egoic structures at a particular level so that you'll be infused with more light. Thirdly, just because you have these thoughts, don't think of going out and doing some action that will harm yourself. Please don't do it. Understand that this is a stage and this stage will pass. Initially, it is difficult to handle this stage. Some even undergo psychiatric treatment thinking that there's something wrong with themselves. As long as you're taking the medicines, it can have some effect on stifling the voices that come in your head. But once you stop the medication and when you're again undergoing that stage in your spiritual awakening process, you can again listen to those voices in your head. So, here, instead of trying to curb the voices, understand that you have to prepare for a phase where you have to look within yourself and you have to deal with your subconscious material. You need to work through it and you need to heal. When you're healing from your karmic baggage, you move into more light, you become wiser. So, all this is happening for your own good so that you will evolve. Another issue somebody with a Kundalini or spiritual awakening faces that there is a magnification of emotions. That is, every emotion that they experience is magnified. If they feel anger, that anger is out of bounds. If they feel happiness, they keep on laughing. They're crying for days together. So even fear gets magnified in this process. So when you listen to these voices during your spiritual awakening process and when you have these magnified emotions, the result can be very dramatic. Here you have to understand that this is a phase in the spiritual awakening process. You need to ground yourself during this phase. Tell yourself that this is just a phase and it will pass. And when you understand this, you are more wiser in dealing with the situation. The unconscious mind within our body is working from this area. So, at a level, your unconscious mind is able to understand that there's pranic movement happening within your head, especially when there's a descent of grace, a lot of the energy is working within the head. So, the unconscious mind, where a lot of legends of people who have undergone spiritual awakening process, it is there at the unconscious level. The myths, the archetypes, the wisdom of the collective consciousness is there at the unconscious level. So, a lot of stories as to how our ancestors underwent a Kundalini awakening process or a spiritual awakening process, it is all there mapped in your unconscious mind. Though you are not able to access your unconscious mind in your wakeful state, your body at a certain level is able to do it. So the body is already able to understand the process even before you understand it, because it is able to access the unconscious mind where the material with regarding to the spiritual evolution is all there as myths, as stories, as legends. The body is able to access it. So your body's own intelligence understands this process even more than you do. It takes time for that wisdom to move from an unconscious level to a conscious state where, when you are awake, you understand what is happening within you. Until this passage of information from the unconscious level to the conscious level happens, there are a lot of fears, there are a lot of questions. This, along with the magnified emotions that one experiences in a Kundalini spiritual awakening process, the result can be really dramatic. So it is very important that you ground yourself at this stage. Now, when your mind is telling you that you will die, what does it mean by this you? And if you are telling yourself that I will die, then what do you mean by this word I? This word, whether you call it I or whether your body is calling it as you inside your head, it just is pointing towards your inner egoic structures. That identification with the body, that I am the body, I am this thought, I am this person who's undergoing this experience, how I relate myself to others around me, what is my status, my finances, how do I perceive myself, what do I think of myself, my opinions, my ideas. They all constitute this I. If the inner voices are telling you that you will die, or if you feel that you will die, so this I or this you, it is just your ego. That identification with that body, that is what is dying away here. And that is what the voices in your mind are telling you. That part of your identification or that egoic structures which cause those identification of the lower self with various things in the external world, and result of which you are caught up at the lower mind level, those structures are dying or disintegrating, because of which you will evolve. This is what these voices mean. But as I said earlier, until we reach a particular level in our spiritual evolution, we will not understand how to decipher the inner voices that we hear. It takes time. It is only much later that when we get wiser and we are not alarmed by our inner voices, we welcome them as a partner on the spiritual path, you are better able to understand these messages. Few on the spiritual path have out of body experiences. These voices can work within the person's mind before they have an out of body experience or during that time frame. But once you come out of your body and you realize that you're not your physical body, that can be a state of shock for the person, especially those who are very deeply identified with the physical body. For them, it is a state of shock. In a way, they experience it as death because they are floating on top of their body and they're seeing their body lying down on the bed. It can be a shock to their system. So, the voices at this level, they are telling the person that they will see their body separate from themselves. That is what the voices mean when somebody have an out of body experience. The difference between somebody undergoing a top down awakening, that is the descent of grace, and somebody was undergoing a down up Kundalini awakening. People who are undergoing a down up Kundalini awakening, because Kundalini is trying to open up the Muladhara chakra, they are more grounded. They are more able to cope with this fear of death or the voices that they listen to in their head. They are more uh, equipped to deal with these situations. But somebody with a top down awakening is generally ungrounded. For them, this can become a mortal fear. Many of them take psychiatric help because these voices, they don't know how to understand these voices, or they feel very ungrounded when these voices are heard in their head. So they need more grounding than those who are undergoing a down up Kundalini awakening. Another aspect which I'd like to talk about in today's video is the kind of disassociation we feel with our physical body when we look at ourselves in the mirror. Even people who have a top down awakening, that is a descent of grace or Shakti path, or somebody who is undergoing a Kundalini awakening, when they look at themselves in the mirror, mostly in the initial phases of their spiritual awakening process, that is when the energy is working in the lowest chakra, that is the Muladhara chakra, There is a granthi there. Granthi is a knot, psychic knot. The person will have the psychic knot at the Muladhara level because the person identifies himself with this body, my property, my status, my family, my mother, my father, my education. I am so and so. I I do this work in the external world. I identify with what I do and what I don't do. So all these identifications, they form a psychic knot at the lowest chakra, which is called Brahma Granthi. As long as the psychic knot is intact, we are caught up with the idea that this physical body is me. But when the energy is working on the Muladhara chakra, the psychic knot is trying to unravel. During this phase, or when somebody has a top down awakening and the energy is working a lot in the brain centers, the top part of the head, they experience something called a kind of disassociation from their physical body. That is, when they see themselves in the mirror, they do not recognize themselves. It is like you're staring into a mirror, but that person that you see in the mirror, you do not recognize that person. It is like you're looking into a stranger's eye. This is especially experienced by people when the energy is working either in the top area here in a top down awakening, or it is working within the Muladhara chakra. But the psychic knot, that is the Brahma Granthi, is not yet open. But before that, when they look at themselves in the mirror, they do not identify themselves as that person who's there in the mirror. This disassociation, a kind of distance between me and my body, is experienced at this stage. It can be very strange when you initially experience it, but understand that this is a phase too. It will pass. After the energy has worked a lot in the area of your Muladhara chakra, after a certain stage, you have worked through the idea that I am this physical body. You have moved away from the idea. At an unconscious level, you still understand that you are a guest in this body. So, again, when you look at yourself in the mirror after the new understanding, the person you are looking at in the mirror is the physical body, and you are a guest in this physical body. So, you understand this at a higher level. With that understanding, now that disassociation which was there earlier is no longer there now. This is the legendary phoenix bird, the bird that burns itself down, it turns into ashes, and it re-emerges from those ashes as a newborn bird. So it is reinventing itself. To reinvent itself, it has to first destroy itself. In the same way, in our spiritual path, we have to destroy ourselves at one level. We have to die at one level to be reborn at a higher level. This is exactly what is happening within our body. And whenever you hear the word death in your head, understand that this death is not the physical death that happens generally in the world, where a person dies and he is buried in the graveyard, or his body is put on a pyre of fire. It is not that kind of death. This death is a symbolic death where you die at one vibrational level, because when you're moving from one vibrational level to the next vibrational level, you are dying at one level. The older self is dying, and at the next level, a higher self is again re emerging within you. So these voices are just pointing to that direction. Once this understanding gets ingrained within you, you will no longer fear these voices. Rather, you will use these voices to understand your next stage in the spiritual transformation. There is a higher aspect within us. We are there at many levels. At a conscious level, we are not aware of it, but we operate at a higher level too. Some call this as a higher self. So, this aspect within us, it is trying to tell us about the impending transformation. And the way it tells us is through these voices. It tells you that you're dying, or you might have the thought that you will die. Our unconscious mind, it understands this process more than we do at a conscious level. The unconscious mind at a universal level has witnessed this process happen over many millennia. That memory of collective conscious is deeply imprinted in our unconscious mind. And this becomes a guide for us. It comes as a voice to tell us what is happening with us in our spiritual transformation. This can be seen as images in our head, as voices in our head. All these are only trying to guide you on your spiritual path. As long as you understand this, you will not fear the voices. Thank you.